Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Art of Inspired Selling. My name is Catherine Evans Nunez, and I'm the host of the show where I interview B2B service-based entrepreneurs that are not just surviving in the new normal, but they're actually thriving. As you know, I'm the founder of the Social Selling Agency, where we do help service-based B2B entrepreneurs build their subject matter expertise to find, engage, and have better conversations with their target market. And part of that is having better sales conversations. A lot of people have a little bit of a misconception about how they should behave on social media, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, where they think my words, spray and pray techniques, are okay, that just because somebody connects with you, you can actually spam them and tell them how great you are and then invite them for a virtual cup of coffee or to get on your calendar. Social selling is used in conjunction with traditional sales techniques to help facilitate the sales process and have those top of funnel activities to help you build your pipeline and have more conversations with your prospects. So today, I have a guest that's going to talk to us about how to have better conversations with our target market. I'm going to bring on my guest, Derek Shebby. He's a founder of Modern Sales Training. He's a best-selling course creator and sales consultant. Now, he did a fabulous job of pivoting in this new normal during the pandemic. Derek Shebby spent 17 years as a top sales executive and sales director with Xerox Corporation. During his tenure, he was a 13-time Sales President's Club award winner. That's awesome. He's coached hundreds of salespeople and sales leaders into excellence and helped grow his local division from 40 million to over 100 million in revenue. After founding Modern Sales Training in 2017, Derek works with companies to help clear their path to success through consulting services and courses designed to create top sales performers. We're going to talk about his online sales training academy. We'll drop the link to his website in the chat. I want to invite you to bring your questions to the live stream. Derek or myself would be more than happy to answer them. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how you can work with Derek if you're interested in finding out more about him. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my guest, Derek, onto the show.
Hi.
Howdy. And now I'm going to make us like really big. Ready?
Whoa. Great. I love it.
Yeah. So welcome to the Art of Inspired Selling. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here, Catherine. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. I know it's taken a little bit of time for us to be able to work our schedules out to have you on the show. I took a couple of days, and I'm actually out in the desert in Palm Springs doing some wonderful hiking with a friend. So it's not my normal stage, but where are you coming live from today?
I am in San Diego. So it usually is a sunny San Diego description, but today it's actually raining randomly. It's pouring today.
My house is all dirt, so I can just imagine my golden doodle is out there like making a disaster when I get home. I'm going to have to pull the mop out.
Yeah. Just be prepared because my dog's doing the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Hopefully it'll be sunny tomorrow. We'll see.
So I have you guys, I have the chat on. We've got Deanna Nunez, who's awesome. She is founder of Mind Body. I can't think of the whole thing of your name, Deanna. You should drop it in the chat. So welcome being on here. We also have, we have another guest here. Let's see who he is. Randy Villaverde. He says, I cheer you on. Please keep up the great work and have an amazing day. Thank you so much, Randy, for being part of the audience today. I hope that you learn some valuable nuggets of information that you can take and implement today, because that's the whole reason I started this live stream, is to bring people on with deliverable content that they can deliver to you, and you can implement it today. So Deanna's back. The name of her company is Vital Mind. So you guys should check her out. I work with Deanna. She's amazing. So we'll keep giving shouts out to the people that join us today. So Derek,
Yeah.
As a part of being on the Art of Inspired Selling, is I love to find out from my guests what inspires you. So, what inspired you, first of all, to start your own company? And then I talk about digging deep. So what do you do that you dig in deep and you wake up and you stay motivated to do what you do? Because sales is a job where it's a career, it's a passion, but you have to be on for people. And as a sales manager, sales director, which I've had 30 years of experience, my sales reps felt my energy. So what do you do to keep your clients upbeat, to keep yourself upbeat? You go ride with people in the field. What is it that inspires you to do what you do?
What a great question, and it's funny. That's actually the first time I've been asked that question. But it comes down to this. I think the progression of learning in general, when you start off in whatever it is you're learning, the top of that of any profession is always like the professor in college, or the person that teaches you the final advanced skill. And you go, why does someone like that do it? Like, why are there college professors, and why does people want to get back and help that way? And I think for me, the challenge was always, could I do it myself? And then once I did it myself, then I said, well, could I do it at a different capacity? Could I do it as a sales manager? And you go, great. Well, then it's, well, can I do it and develop a lot of people at once? And then did that. And then I went into course creation, and then it's, well, can I create something in a way to help people all around the world and have it be a bite-sized format that anyone could adopt? And that's been working too. And I think for me, when you have success, you want other people to feel success too.
Yes.
And that's been really a driving factor for me. But for me, it's not just the course. I really do prefer being in the field side by side, showing them and doing that part, as opposed to classroom. I really don't like classroom, and my style really isn't classroom either. It's much more, let's go do it together. And that's what I like. I like to see that the results and get the deals in the end of the day.
Yeah, and a lot really good sales managers and really good sales trainers do have that experience, right? And they say, well, let me show you what I do. Take my best practices, and develop your own and own it. This is what has worked for me. Let me show you. And it's also a little bit of servant leadership, right? Where you want to be in the trenches with people. It's really hard to be a road warrior for 30 years, which I've been, and I've only traveled, I think, 3 times this year. And that windshield time with the sales rep is very valuable for training. It's very valuable for role playing. How are you? Okay, let me back up. We're like digging into it because I'm such a sales geek. So who do you work with primarily?
Well, right now, ironically, I came from the copier industry with Xerox, right? And so I'm very well known within Xerox. And so I do have clients that are inside of that same field, CEOs of small dealerships, but where I help them, grow their dealership, because that's what I was a part of at my own company. So that's one of my clients, which makes the most sense. But then the other client and the other field that I've been doing a lot of work with is agriculture, which doesn't necessarily seem like it should connect, but I've been surprised about how similar it can be to the B2B sales game, and so that's what I've got quite a few clients inside of that space, where I consult for CEOs in that space. I also work with their sales teams in a variety of different capacities, and most of that is in sales consulting in that world. So. But back to the question, I really do want to build upon what you asked. You said about how do you coach them in the field and how do you do it? And I think what's really interesting is I literally just spent 3 weeks in the field with a client all over the U.S., riding in the field with their reps and their managers and their VPs. And I really tried my best to not give any coaching until we actually did it in the field. And I think that's what's different with a lot of people out there. Like, you want to give coaching when you weren't there. And you want to say, oh, this is what I think you should do. And my approach is more, let's just go do it. Let me see what you got. What's the plan at this customer? What are we going to do? What's the objective? And then once you go there, I could see if they have a plan. If they have a plan, then I go with the plan and I support the plan. But if they don't have a plan, then I jump in and I try to find valuable information to help them do a better job selling to their customers and for their own company as well. So, but that's when the coaching actually starts. It doesn't start when you haven't seen someone. It's not. That's the theory world. It only starts when you see what they actually do. And so I think that's what I love doing. So I'd be in the car and I'd be talking about everything else but, and some of these rides, Catherine, that might have been like 45 minutes to get to a customer because, I mean, we're in rural America. And we're driving past
I've experienced it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so it takes forever. And so I'd be thinking, okay, how can I get into all these conversations that don't have to deal with coaching their sales skills, because it's just not fair for me to give them any sort of feedback. It doesn't even make any sense unless I see what they actually do. And then I offer up some ideas, but it's so much more powerful when you show them on the fly. Like they'll say something or they won't do it, and then I'll jump in and do it because sales is sales. And I'll jump in and do it, and then the reaction from their client is just like, for them, in many situations, it was like mind-blowing about, wow, I haven't been doing it that way. But then the coaching conversations after that become so much more relevant. And I think that's the best situations I can possibly be in.
And do you find that with you coming in as a consultant and third party, they're not as intimidated or they're not as nervous because you're not there to be critical, you're there to make them successful? Do you see that difference? What is the feedback you get from the sales reps? Like, oh, I was really worried about you coming. They're nervous, they're jittery, they might not be themselves at first. How do you see they take the training?
That's a really good question. And I would say that the feedback in general for anyone coming in to coach, anyone coming in to consult, is most salespeople are familiar with being coached outside of the field. Where someone's saying, this is the know-it-all that's telling you what to do because of their past experience. And so there's a little bit of, of apprehension when they're working with me. But that's why I try not to give feedback until we've done it together. And so what I've found is in the field, when I'm side by side, it doesn't matter who I'm with, whether it's a VP of sales or it's a sales professional that's been doing it for 20 years in their own territory, building up their client base. But when they see me do something that they've never done, and that's my challenge. It's if I'm going to show them that I'm someone that they can listen to, then I've got to establish credibility really fast. It's not what I have written on my website. It's what I do with them next to me in front of their customer live. And the interesting thing about that, Catherine, is that most of them end up telling me afterwards that they've never had their manager do that or their manager's manager. It's like
isn't that interesting?
They want to hang out in the classroom. They want to hang out in their office.
I think, as you know, I'm a part of the National Association of Women Sales Professionals, and we've had some conversations around how do you interact with your sales manager? And so I have an assumption, right? I have an assumption that all sales managers help with strategic prospecting. They look at both their database, they look at their target market, they look at their quota, they talk about maybe how they should work their territory, what an ABC client is, how many clients is it going to take, what's your run rate going to be, what's the rule of 78, how you're going to hit, like really strategy. And I hear, nope, we just get a database or we're told, go find your leads. So there's some assumptions that happen in modern day enterprises. And I'm really happy that you exist so that you can help people in the field actually learn the skills on the spot. And so for today's conversation, are there some key takeaways that you want to let's back up to you're just going out to work with a new company, right? So tell me that process about what you do to get ready. And then when you evaluate somebody, tell me a few things about either their open or their discovery questions or their trial closing, or what type of techniques are you using when you're working with them?
Yeah, we'll going back to real quick to what you mentioned about sales managers. I mean, I think that is one difference between myself and my company than other sales training companies out there, is because I've been the sales manager for years, and I've experienced all that, and I've trained sales managers, and I think I definitely have I can feel their pain, because the sales manager job could be the most difficult job in the entire organization. And I think a challenging piece about it is they all really care, and you have to really care to be any sales related manager. And I think that the challenging part for them is there's so much to do, and there's so many things that they don't know how to do. It's a lot like, I know we've had conversations about this about children. I mean, I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, 2 boys, and as I'm raising them, you kind of figure it out as you go, and you hope you're doing the right thing. And sometimes the most simplest things, you can't step back and go, what do I want to do, or what would make the most sense? And that's so logical to think about that way, but you're just doing the best you can, and it requires training and support, and unfortunately, most organizations aren't built in a way where they're developing their sales managers, and that's really the problem. And because everyone's going so fast, and you got to change the tires on the freeway, sort of thing. So I would say I appreciate the efforts that the sales managers do, but when it comes down to it, how can I give them the key information that they need so they can make small tweaks into their schedule and be more aware of what they're not doing, but hearing that from the field, like I'm right there in it. So back to that. I mean, I'm not in the field with every client, and it is outside of it and virtual too for quite a bit. But I think my courses, people do appreciate the fact that my courses there's no fluff. It's just like this. I'm talking about, this is what actually happens, and this is what I've seen work, and these are 3 strategies that are different strategies you'll find out there, and they all work at different times. And this is when I would use it. And so that's my style. So back to your question about how I interact with these companies. I think the most important thing is credibility, and I think that's something that always stands out, because I'm not someone that's going to say that there's one way to do things, and because I don't believe that. And as I was growing in my own career, and growing the organization I was a part of, you look at things and you say, here's something new that just came out. Let me try it. Let me try it with my people. Let me try it in the field and see if it works. And sometimes that works, or sometimes that didn't work, but I should keep trying it and see if it works on a different time. And so, I've in my own career, I've experienced that there's lots of things that work out. And so with that in mind, I don't go to these companies and saying, I have one method that is like, you have to do this or you're not going to win. I go in there and I say, what are you doing? Like, what is your process? And how can it be improved? Or how can I show you something that you might not have done before, and that you might not have considered? And so it does require some research on my own part and trying to find some ways to link it. And I think me writing in the field is one of my services that I do offer, which is like an in-field assessment. And I have done that for quite a few clients. And it's helpful for me to make the curriculum that I work with them on, for their whole organization, make it about them and not something that's just out there.
Yeah, so you're customizing your curriculum. So we had talked just a little bit about how a B2B organization, and agriculture is the one that you've talked about. And as I think you might know, my background is in healthcare, and that would be specialty physicians. And those physicians are not sitting in the front of LinkedIn, or they're not sitting in front of Facebook looking for, gee, what laboratory test can I order now?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not like they have free time. They're on Facebook, like chatting with old colleagues or family members, or just like we would, right?
Right.
So these agriculture sales reps as well are not going to find their target market on social media, because they're up when the sun rises. They're working in the fields, as you said, or maybe they're not the ones physically working in the field, but they're overseeing their entire crews. They've got heavy equipment. They've got, if they're doing cattle or they're traveling, they're running this lots and lots of moving parts.
Right.
So how are these sales reps effective at getting in front of their target market? Are they making phone calls? Or are they using email? Like, What have you seen in the industry in general that is working? And then what things have you recommended to them to bring them up to the modern day sales rep
Yeah.
that other people that might be watching this either now or in the replay can also implement?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I thought about that in preparation for today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll tell you in two ways. One is I've got this: where do salespeople get wrong today? And obviously, I'm thinking about them, but I'm also thinking about what my experience is in just manufacturing that in that sales world from like Xerox, because there's a lot of comparisons.
Okay.
And there's even how it connects with things like social selling. But then I'll tell you that I wrote down some things to bring up, which I thought were, what are the three things that modern sellers should be doing?
And
Because
I'm
that's
going to type that while you're saying it, so
perfect.
that the audience can see that. What are the three things that
That B2B modern salespeople should be doing to have great success. So I'll go through that in a
Go
second.
ahead and talk while I type.
Yeah, I'll start off by talking about where do people get it wrong. And I think this is a very important thing to realize. If you go on LinkedIn as an example, and you read about all the tips, because LinkedIn is filled with all these people out there that know how to sell, and they're selling all day long, and they're telling you what you need to focus on, and this is how you sell. And what they'll basically tell you is you need to sell the deck and not the tools. So in other words, what's the finished product that you're selling, and don't talk about what you're using to make the finished product. That's the theme that you see all over the place. And
what's the outcome? That people don't want to know the how, they're not interested, they just want to know what's in it for me.
They just want to know the outcome. And the thing is that you go everywhere on LinkedIn, you'll probably see 50 posts like that every single day. And you see, so if you're looking to get better and you see these posts, you go, okay, I got to sell the outcome. Now, this is the problem, though, in my opinion, from what I've seen. And the problem is, if you're selling the outcome, like let's just say you're selling the deck, right? And that's what the tools will build, the deck in your backyard, right? If you're doing that, then what happens is you're also assuming that no one else is out there selling the deck. Because if everyone else is out there selling the deck and like, oh, this is what we're going to help you do, then what happens is by definition, the playing field they're all the same, because they're all going to get you a deck. We're going to get
it's all just table stakes, right? As we say in sales, it's just table stakes. It's a deck. It's a commoditized deck now, because everybody has it.
And that's what I see. That's what I see out there. I see that it doesn't matter where you go. When I guess I'm referring to agriculture, I'm referring to the manufacturing industry. People sell the deck, and then what happens is the customer goes, well, they do that too. And as soon as that happens, well, they do that too. They're done. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. And I've seen this in person. So forget about this. This is what you should do. I'm in the field with these people as they're doing it. These people that have been doing it forever. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm really great at selling the value of this. And so what ends up happening, and this is the problem, is people confuse value selling. And what they do, Catherine, is they start saying they immediately lean to value selling as how they sell themselves. And the challenge with that is, believe it or not, for any of you listening in right now, and you're thinking that's what I do. I'm so good at saying, oh, you should go with Derek because I'm so great, and I'll answer the phone on a Saturday night, and I'm there to help you, and I'll give you my cell phone.
Right.
That's it. And you know what? You might be great at it. You might be great at saying that, but unfortunately, what you're not thinking of is the person you're up against. They're saying the same exact thing, and they're a good person too. They're a good person. The customer likes them just as much as they like you. And so what happens is when you push so much effort about selling you, what are you not selling? You're not selling your company, and you're not selling whatever it is your offering is. And so because of that, by definition, by not even doing it, you're saying that they are the same and that you are the difference.
Yes.
So the customer's hearing this, and the customer's like, well, you guys both sound great, and your products obviously are the same, since you're not telling me anything different, since you're just talking about, that it's just you. So then the customer then just goes, okay, give me the lowest price. And we're in this commodity world.
Yes.
And that's what I see in the field, not like this is what you should sell. And so the problem is we need to learn about how to sell. So I got 3 things that will help everybody become great B2B.
And I can't wait to hear those, because in all of my years as well, and I sold a lot of oncology testing and a lot of bone marrow biopsy testing, and it was the same thing. Everybody had a great looking report, and turnaround time, the delivery of the result back was a little bit better, but the sales reps just started selling themselves. The bubbly personality, whoever had the best person, whoever brought the best meal. It started to be things completely unrelated to the company.
Right.
Those fringe benefits that those are the values. And so I'm really interested to hear what you're going to say. So everybody listen, this is really good.
Yeah. So you'll also see my style for those of you listening in here. And my style is very practical because I go out there and do it myself. And I go do that with people that I'm with in the field. We see the reaction, we see the results, we win a big deal. I worked with a client in the manufacturing industry last week, and just by using these sort of things, this one person won a deal that they made over $100,000 in profit in the deal, as an example, in a commodity world. And it was a CEO's biggest deal that they've ever done, too, by the way.
Wow.
And it's all comes down to the same things.
Okay, what are they?
So the first thing, very simple, is you got to lead with educating the customer. That's the first thing. You got to lead with education. And so
educating them about what?
It's exactly. So what you're educating is do you know what they need? Do you know where they're at today? Everyone wants to get to that next level. Are they walking into these places thinking, how can I get them to become bigger? I mean, if they started a company, they started it thinking that they wanted to continue to grow, right? That's just one of the basic things. No one wanted to start a business to grind it out in the lowest level and just never get anywhere further. They wanted to continue to grow. Yes. So whoever you are that's listening to this right now, you have a lot of different customers, most likely. And you have customers that are at different levels, right? They're at different levels of success. They have more customers, more customer base. They've got, they make more money, however it is. And when you go down to someone that's smaller, what they really want is they want to know, what are those people that are doing better than us doing that I'm not?
Yes.
Right. So if you're leading with educating, and that education could just be ideas, as an example. Hey, we work with a lot of organizations. I know you're doing like this, and that's great. We work with organizations that are here, like these companies, and they should realize that those companies are like a step up. I mean, if you're talking to, like an example, if you're talking to mom and pop shop sort of size, and you're mentioning that you work with Apple and Microsoft, I mean, they're going to think immediately, there's no shot. Like I'm not there, right? But if you're talking about a company that has, double the amount of employees they have today, they want to know, what are they doing? What are they doing with what you provide, right? And so the education piece is very important. And so questions that I have for you just to think about there is, do you look like somebody that could help your customer? Like, you look like someone that they would go to and they'd say, hey, how can you help me get there? Do you look the part? Do you sound the part? Do you know them enough? Do you know what they're going through enough? And if you don't, you got to, because they're trying to find right now, today, they're looking online, they're searching on YouTube, they're searching on the news, everywhere they can get for the keys that can help them get to that next level. That's what they're trying to find.
For growth.
So, for growth, to continue to build their company so they can.
Well, even maybe they have so much business, their infrastructure needs to grow, right? So it could potentially not be revenue growth. Like maybe they had all this money or all this business handed to them. Now they have quality issues, or now they have delivery issues, or now they have a manufacturing error that got baked into something that they were doing. So it's really taking the time to ask the discovery questions about a holistic approach to the business, not just how your one piece is going to fit, right? It's
Absolutely.
really it's asking those questions with the right people to get the right answers to then use your noggin, right?
Absolutely.
Outside, because you want to be the consultative salesperson that they are going to call. Hey, can you hook me up with that other company that you were talking about? I can maybe learn best practice if they're not a competitor. So are those some of the things that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And it all comes down to wherever they're at, there's something going on with your customer that they're going, man, I wish I just knew how to solve this. I wish I just knew all the people that are bigger than me. Did they go through the same thing? Did they have the same challenges? Did they have the same struggles? And how are they past that now? Like, what is that information? And you may or may not, with your offering, have that answer specifically, but there's probably a way that whatever it is that you have to offer, there is some interesting connection to this is what the people that are larger than you, larger than them, are doing, and that how they're using your offering, because they wouldn't be using it at that capacity if it wasn't working, right? So,
and how would they get that information? Would it be through an introduction to a non-competitive company, or would the sales rep then take that information back to the corporation and say, you know, we really need a case study about best practices because 90% of our clients have these 3 problems of which we don't solve, but we want to do a poll in the industry and bring some sort of a white paper or bring it awareness to the industry. Like, what are some of the ideas that you've seen that have been implemented that are successful?
Yeah.
And let's see, we have a Deborah, we have a guest here. This is a very interesting point. My question is, how do I summarize a holistic approach in a single discovery question? So that's a good question. Which question do you want to take first? Mine?
I'll take yours first. And then
okay, let me hide this and we're going to come right back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I'm a big fan of case studies. And because it basically, your case study is a company had a problem, and then you guys got involved and helped solve that problem, and then it's a happy ending, right? And to really understand the case studies is to really understand certain companies that you work with had and how you solved them. Here's the challenge with case studies. Most salespeople wait for the case studies to be provided, and that's the problem. That's a problem. I'm in the field with these people, and one of the things that I'd be asking if they didn't have a plan for the appointment, you know, we go to these customers, and I can tell this salesperson just doesn't know what to do for this call. I go in there and I ask them I'm trying to find these case studies. What are you doing with this today? Why did you need that today? Is it helping? How did it help? What were you using before? Like, I'm literally asking questions to build a case study, and that becomes my messaging with the rep to have them take that to another client. And the thing is every single day, if you're meeting with customers like you should be, you're thinking, how can I learn something from this customer, where they're at, and then think about obviously who's below them or who would love to be their size, who would love to be have their problems, and those are the people that you share this information with. And that can be with prospecting, as an example, with companies that you know you don't work with today, but you know that you could share, you know, information where you're not specifically saying the company if that's proprietary information, but you can show that you work with other organizations that are larger than them, right? And then they have these sort of challenges, and you want to talk to them about how your organization helped them get through those challenges. You got time to meet. And
that's great.
Case studies is very critical, but salespeople don't typically take it upon themselves to build their own case studies. And every single customer that you have is a potential for a case study. And so I would recommend, if you feel, you know, it's probably a lot easier for you to ask those discovery questions if you're not good at asking them, but it's a lot better asking them with people that are happy with your service right now. So just go there and ask them those questions and build out what was the problem they're trying to solve, and what are the challenges they were going through. How did your offering solve that? Help them through that? Is it still doing it? Right? Would they recommend it? Right? Things like that. And you'll find that you'll build studies in your own real reasons that. So I guess back to this question now.
Okay, let me put this question back on here. All right, and I don't want to chop your name. I know this, Deb, Piro Deb, and we've worked together before in the industry, so I know who he is. But yeah, so my question is, how do I summarize a holistic approach in a single discovery question? Well, I'm going to let you answer that first, and then I can give my opinion too.
Yeah, so I guess I'm assuming in this point that the question is about, you know, how can you ask one question in discovery to get all this information from a customer, right? Well, I think the best, there's no single discovery question is probably the easiest answer.
Exactly. You can't. How about you can't?
You can't ask one question to get all that. And so I would always encourage you to ask at least 2 follow-up questions per question, at least 2. Just try to keep it really simple. So ask one question and then a follow-up question, and just by you asking a second question, a follow-up question is going to be challenging most of the times. So once you get used to asking 2, you can see if it needs to continue down that path, because you're really looking to see if there's something that you can connect with from your offerings down here. And if not, then you should go to another question. But yeah, to answer your question, Deb, I would say that it can't ask one, but the best way to approach your questions, and from what I've seen, is to try to understand their thought process behind why they're even looking at it in the first place. Try to go back to the first day of the story, right? What triggered a problem? What made them think that they needed to go down this path and this journey to solve it? And then you need to identify if there maybe is there a challenge in their logic along the way. And a lot of times, if you find a way to challenge the logic, then you're able to get back to the beginning with them and help them solve the problem again from the beginning. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and some of it can be, I don't want to say simple, right? But yeah. Think in simple terms. So, let's say I was going to get on a conversation with Derek at first, and I'd say, so Derek, let's talk about how the year has been, and what are some of the goals that you have for this year? What worked this year? In a very I'm trying to sell you something question. Right. Just tell me a little bit about your industry, or share your knowledge of the industry. Like I know the selling industry has been really rough for B2B salespeople because they haven't been able to get in front of their customer because of the pandemic. They're locked out. They're not letting customers into manufacturing. Some of the manufacturing, from what I've heard from other customers, some of the manufacturing places are even closed and they're not open. So how have you been what are some of the struggles that you've had this year? And then you guys, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You listen, you right. wait, and the customer is going to tell, oh, really? And then the next question is, tell me a little bit more about that. Wow. And is that a problem you guys are going to work to solve this year? Is that something that you're actively looking for a solution to? Even if it's not a solution that you provide, you could refer the person out, or you could just ask, as Derek just said, you have to ask a few more questions about the problem. So yeah. He says, thank you, very helpful. So if you guys have anything else. So now we've talked about lead with educating the customer. What's our second?
So our second one is you got to understand why companies choose to go with you and your offering. That's the second thing. And that's what I noticed is very much not happening out there. And so what I mean by that is you have competition. Most people want to shy away from that. It seems like anytime I bring up the competition in the field with people, is they would be like, oh, well, it's just one of those things. We don't want to bring it up. Well, here's the thing. If there's real reasons why you separate yourself from the competition, what's wrong with bringing it up, right? Do you really think that your customer's not looking something up? We all look things up. That's what we do. Yes. As consumers, we
very educated consumers today, right?
Yeah, we compare. That's what we do. And so if you think as a salesperson that you don't need to be armed with why should someone go with you versus someone else, it's crazy. And so there's 2 things that I think you should have very simple, along these lines that you should know. You should know why your company versus the other company that's doing the same sort of thing. So like why Modern Sales Training versus Dale Carnegie, as an example. Like they do the same thing. We both have live courses that we do over, virtually. We both have on-demand courses that people can sign up for. So it's like why Modern Sales Training versus Dale Carnegie sort of thing. And, to answer that, to answer my own question, I would say that Dale Carnegie was based on a book that was written, 500 years ago, right? And that's their whole sales methodology based upon that. My sales experience and all my courses and all the live things are based upon things that I'm seeing in the field last week. And doing in the field successfully, continuously over the past 17 years. Yes. So it's one is practical and one is based upon a book and theory from 500 years ago. So that's one thing.
And understanding why companies do business with you, a good sales manager should have their sales reps doing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat analysis of their territory, right? And so to be able to answer those questions, you want to know what you're doing right, what the company's doing right. That's just messaging that you can use when we're talking about case studies.
Yeah.
That's messaging that you can now take to your next sales call. I was just talking to so-and-so and they said they really like this, how's your current vendor doing with that? I've spoken to a lot of people and they weren't doing that. And I want to go back to that thing where we're talking a little bit about understanding the competition. I've worked in some very competitive fields, and you don't, as a good sales rep, you don't slam the competition. Some of the words that I would use is, well, as you know, Dr. X, we have some very formidable competitors that do X, and they know who it is. You just don't need to say the name. But you also don't need to be the slammer to say, oh, yeah, they have sleazy sales practices and their reps are this and they do this. I mean, you're not there to do that, right? Tell me a little bit on your opinion about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. And it's just one of those things that, for those of you that if you are saying that out there, I mean, you hear that you're not supposed to do it. But what happens is you're going to do it once, and when that happens, you might not realize it, but it's going to turn a customer off. It just does, and then they'll tell you that they went with the competition just because you were bad mouthing them, and you might be bad mouthing them in a way that you don't realize. And so I would just tell you from experience, it's going to happen to you, and you're going to say, it's fine, I'll just do it anyway. So this is what I recommend you do. I like to go in there and say you have options. Because if you're educating the customer, which is number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're leading with education, then they know they have options, and they know that they have other people that they could go to for business. And so I would lead with saying, hey, so when it comes to this sort of thing, you've got two choices. You got this sort of option right here, which does it like this, or you have this sort of option that does it like this. And obviously, I would be focusing on the ones that I'm strong in. Right? So
yes,
let's just say I have something that's better here, and then I know that the competition doesn't have something that is as good there. So I'd say, hey, when it comes to this, you have your choice of two things. You can get this option right here that does this, or you can get this option that does this. And this is the benefits of each. Which one would you like, to have for your company? And then if you do a good job, they're going to say yours, right? But they're not going to say yours. They're going to say that option. So then you could always say, okay, I'm going to make sure I include that option in my proposal. Can you make sure everyone else does it the same way?
Mm-hmm.
And they make sure that they get that down. So then what happens is now their customer goes to the other vendors and they say, hey, we want to make what's really important that we have this. Can you give that to us? And then the competition is just going to say,
I can't.
Yeah.
See or it's smoke and mirrors, right?
Yeah.
It becomes smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. So they'd be like, we can't offer that. Or maybe if they did offer that, they'd be pricing themselves out. And so I would recommend that you lead by education. That really is the second part of my number two, which is you need to understand how your product is different from the competition's product, because that's a big thing. And I'll give you an example here. I was in the field with one of the top reps of this organization, and these are my basic questions. Like after we start going to seeing certain customers, I'd say, okay, so hey, why should people choose you versus them? And it was always interesting to hear what they would say. And sometimes I'd actually have to ask the customers themselves, hey, so why are you with these people? I mean, it's great. I know they're awesome, appreciate your business, but why not them? Like, why not? Because I'd want to hear from the customer. And I'd find that most of the times the reps didn't even know why, which is crazy. It's crazy, Kath, when you think about it. They don't even know why they're with them. And so I had them, because I'll bring up a situation like, here's a service, like, oh, well, we have this service. And I'd say, well, does the competition have that service too? And they'd say, yes. Or even if they say no, I'm like, are you sure? And they'd be like, no. And so then I'm like, well, if you don't know, I'm going to ask your customer. And so I ask the customer, and they go, oh, well, no, you guys do something 5 days a week, and they do something 1 day a week. And then we go with you guys because it's 5 days a week with you guys, and it's only 1 day a week for them. And I'm like, okay. So I leave the customer, and I tell the rep, so you basically have an offering that you guys do 20 days of the month, and the competition does 4. I said, so when you're talking about why they should go with you versus someone else, you say, hey, look, hey, we're both great organizations, but a lot of organizations choose us because they really need this. And, we do that 20 days out of the month, and you can have 20 days a month, or you can have 4 days out of the month. How many days would you like to have out of the month? 20 days. Okay, I'll make sure we include 20 days out of the month. Can you make sure everyone else does that too?
Yeah.
And then they go that, and then they can't do it, right?
So one thing to remember is to understand, while you might think that's a great benefit because it sounded good, right? To make sure that has a positive business impact on the client before you start running with it all the time. Like exactly. How does that, tell me, Mr. Customer, how does that 20 days a month benefit your company so that you can hear it from them? Not that that's why they chose it, maybe they just wanted more for something, but you need to hear it, right?
Absolutely. And that's part of it too, because, if there's no reason, if that's not really that big of a deal, then there's no reason to bring it up. So that was typically one of those things that would come from, hey, so why are you with them? They'd say, well, they do this. I'm like, well, don't they do it too? Yeah. Well, what's different then? Why not use theirs? Well, this company does it this many days. Okay, what does that mean to you? Has that really had an impact to your organization, having it 20 days versus 4 days, as an example? But yeah, that coming into number 2, if you don't know why someone should go with your company, or why your product over your biggest competitive product, and you don't know how to explain that and the things that actually matter to your customers, then you should expect it to come down to price. That's it. It's going to come down to price. And it's not anyone's fault but yourself. And so I think that's something that's really important to get for number 2. So number 1 is leading with education. Number 2 is understanding why companies choose to go with your company and your offering. And then number 3 that I have in here is the third way to have incredible success as a modern seller. And I think you're going to like this, Catherine, is you got to use networking and social selling as a way to reach more people. And I have that in here. And I think this even applies to, like I mentioned, the agricultural and manufacturing space. Not necessarily because, when I say networking, networking's still the sort of thing. Like how can you get your message to more people at once? And that's the basic. That's social selling. That's getting your message out there to the right clients, so they can find you more than it would take for you to call, even if you're calling 100 dials a day. How do you reach those people quicker and the right people? And so, one of these clients that I work with, I've been helping them lead with education, as an example. And just by leading with education, they've been going to their current customers and teaching them something about the technology that they didn't necessarily know today. And the technology that they're leading is that whole sort of thing where it's like, you have this option or this option. Which option would you want? And the whole thing is built to be this story of it being like, we're the only option. Like that's what the story ends up being. And just from working with them in 2 months, they've already increased their sales 50%.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and that's leading with education and understanding number 2, which is that. But the third part is networking. So how do you take that beyond just one customer education? And this organization, I'm sure if you look around, for anyone that's listening right now, and you're saying, how can I do this for myself? Well, there's probably larger forums that you can be on where you can communicate that message. And these organizations there's larger companies that their customers are all members of. And they're there because they're trying to learn more. They're trying to, again, get to that next level, right?
Yes.
They want to grow or do things better, more efficiently, like you mentioned, Catherine. And they're not getting it from the salesperson. They're getting it from other things. I literally had an owner of a business tell me, in front of the customer, in front of the salesperson, that their way of learning how to get better for their business, because if they don't get better, they die, they basically said. They said that they go to trade shows, they read magazines, and they're part of industry groups. And I had to throw in, well, what about the salesperson? He goes, oh yeah, well, there's the salesperson too, because the salesperson right there, they had a relationship. But the point is I said, well, how's that going with the pandemic? They're like, well, we don't have trade shows. We can't go to trade shows. And so we're just stuck with magazines and our industry calls. So back to this, how can the salesperson, how can you as a salesperson be that walking trade show where you're educating your customers on how they can get better? And at the same time, if you want to get in those industry groups that they're in, how can you get there and share this education to a group, which is a massive client base? That's the networking aspect. So that's the piece. And it might not be necessarily LinkedIn as a place to grow your business, but social selling isn't just that. I mean, you need to find ways to reach
exactly
lots of people, and you can if you find the right group. And no one's better at that than you, Catherine.
Oh,
so
thanks.
try to do that.
Thank you. And one of the things that I've heard from physicians being in focus groups where I've supported, sorry, I just had somebody walk in. Hold on one second. So sometimes the client might not believe the sales rep because they feel like they might have come across as slimy instead of educational. Like they're only going to present to them company-focused information with viewpoints that aren't necessarily the industry standard or the industry belief. So bringing in information from an industry to them that's not company-focused might also be a way to help with educating them, like understanding just what you said. Ask that question: which industry associations do you belong to? Oh yeah, well I was just reading an article on in that association about, and then that will help build credibility, right? So it's not just you as the showing up and throwing up company sponsored information to the client. So
and that goes back to the question about you that's watching this. How do they look at you? Are you that person that they will just say, oh, you're just my salesperson? Or are they looking at you as saying you're someone that helps them make good decisions going forward, that brings them ideas that they might not have seen before, that actually that's worked with companies that are bigger than them in their same industry, that has information that could really benefit them? And how are you positioning yourself, and how are you portraying yourself on social media? How are you portraying yourself when you meet with them over the phone? And that's why I recommend you lead in with educating and trying to separate yourself. Because I literally had a customer tell, I was in a room and I was asking what about the sales rep, because the sales rep went to the bathroom. The sales rep said, the customer said, look, I don't need to talk to him. He's just my sales rep. Literally said that. And I want you to think about that for all you listening in, just the sales rep. Or are you someone that they believe has value, that you can help them and solve these challenges that they're in a war trying to solve right now? So
that's such a valuable message. And if you guys take something home today, that's something to really remember, is to build your own value. And I talk about building personal branding to be the foundation of a social selling strategy. Build your subject matter expertise. Be the go-to person, be the consultative person that someone from a company, maybe it's a secretary, always make somebody look better, right? Always, and if they don't have time for look for the information, if you don't have an answer, so you know what, I don't really have the answer for that, but I'm going to make it my job to get that information and to bring it back to you. And that's how you grow as a salesperson. Right. You always research and you always strive to be better in your industry, and you go deep to be the subject matter expert as you grow in any field. So we're going to wrap this up. Derek, we've gone long. All my shows are long because we have such valuable information. I hope everybody really, really enjoyed the banter back and forth. I know I did. I'm a sales geek. I'm sorry, I really am. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So thanks, everybody. Derek, how can people find you at Modern Sales Training? I'm going to drop your about section here in the chat for everybody.
So my website is modernSalesTraining.com. I think that's right there. And I have basically, I've got on-demand courses, I've got live courses, and they're all field relevant. Just basically like me talking right here with some notes, and I welcome you all to check it out. I actually have a course. If you search for it, in the course finder, which is just find a course, and it's called Sales in 21 Days Free. I recommend checking it out. It's an hour and a half long course that goes over all these different sales skills, and it's there's no strings attached. It's 100% free. Check it out, and hopefully that can help you get to that next level in sales of whatever it is you're looking for your organization. And hopefully we get a chance to talk later in the future too.
Yeah, so in addition to the courses that you have to offer, if somebody's watching this in the replay or watching it now, your target market is manufacturing. Tell us a little bit more about that. What's their revenue range? How many sales reps do they have? What kind of investment do they need to be willing to make to be able to hire you to come in and assess, or what are the different kinds of packages that you have for them?
Yeah, so it's not just manufacturing. I've got, when it comes to my courses, I have almost 20,000 students around the world right now on my courses. Yeah, which is crazy, and they range from. And I've got companies that use my courses that are 10,000 salespeople in the company, and I've got some clients that I work with that have 1,000 salespeople in the company, and I'm consulting for them. And I've got some that are 10, and then I've got some clients that I'm just consulting with the CEO, and the CEO is got a smaller sales organization. So I don't really have one specific size. I believe that what I made for my courses, it's one size fits all sort of thing, because it's more around the fundamentals of sales. Yeah, so I don't have a specific range. That's why I compared myself a little bit to Dale Carnegie, because I have courses that can apply to the masses. But what I would say is that if you want on-demand lessons by skill set, which is one thing that's unique about my stuff, is if you want to specifically learn about how to cold call over the phone, as an example, I've got a course for that. I've got a course just on objection handling. I've got a course just on how to create urgency with your customers. And so it's all by what skill you specifically need to get there. And then I've got live courses that I actually do, where once a week I meet with people virtually like this. And we talk. I only do 5 people at a time, because I want to make sure I'm helping and making an impact with each person. But I have live trainings that I do on a specific topic, and so I welcome you all to check that out too as well. It's on my Find a Course. So
that's great.
And then consulting, if you need help with your sales team in general, I can work with you and them too as well.
Okay. Well, I want to wrap the show, and thank you so much for coming on and delivering the information. Those 3 things that we'll repeat once again is educate your customer, lead with educating them, understand why people do business with you, which is so important for your messaging as well. You're there to solve a problem. Why did they choose you? It will also help you with your unique value proposition and understanding why the people chose you and continue to choose you. And then use networking and, of course, social selling to make sure that you can be a one-to-many person. But also remember, once again, that social selling skill and the social selling strategy is a top-of-funnel activity where you're building awareness around yourself, around your brand, around the company's, what the company can do. And so that is to be used in corporation with your other traditional sales techniques. So thanks, everybody, for showing up. This is a wrap from the Art of Inspired Selling. I bring this show to you weekly, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Next week is episode 50. So we're approaching episode 50, season 2. We have a really good hitter. I'm not even going to let the cat out of the bag until I bring the information up, but we do have a New York Times bestseller that's coming in. That's a very motivational speaker. And we're going to talk about mindset, because mindset is something that I've been dealing with recently in, everything that's happening in the world. Mindset is so important in all aspects of our life, not just in sales, not just in business, but it's very important to wake up and be able to inspire the world. How do you do that with your mind? So that's going to be our subject for next week. We stream live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. What am I missing? YouTube. Hit up our YouTube channel, and on Twitch. So with that, I will say goodbye to everybody. Any last minute talks, words of wisdom that you want to give?
Today. Good luck, you guys.
And stay on the show here as I wrap, you guys. Take care. And